I'll give you the details, but this is the direction we're going. This is absolutely the direction we're going. But to start out, it's, what are Trump and his dead enders really up to? In my opinion, their agenda is very easily explained. Where'd my camera go? Oh, there it is. Is very easily explained, and that is that number one, destroy democracy, right? And the whole idea of the voters deciding who their president is, and I mean, to the extent I suppose we've already ended that. George W. Bush lost by 500,000 votes, but he still became president. Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 3 million votes, but Donald Trump still became president. So anyhow, number one, end democracy in America. And number two, turn this country into an authoritarian oligarchy. I laid this out in the Hidden History of American Oligarchy in that book, and it's so clear. They want to turn America into something that looks like Hungary or Russia. I mean, it's just very, very straightforward. Step one is to end free and fair elections in America. I got this fundraising email from Donald Trump on Wednesday, I think it was, of this week. And it said, if we don't solve the presidential election fraud of 2020, which we have thoroughly and conclusively documented, Republicans will not be voting in 22 or 24. It's the single most important thing for Republicans to do. So the media treated this like Trump is either threatening other Republicans to do something that they don't understand, or he's just being a testy, grumpy billionaire, right? He wants them to love him more, or he's just losing his grip. Neither of those things are true. What Trump was actually saying in that email that I got and that, became national news was, if the rest of you Republicans who still hold office don't do like a couple of states have already done and pre-rig the 2024 Electoral College election result, you're going to lose office and you're going to lose power. And I'll, Donald Trump, lose my chance to get back into the White House. Which is true, by the way, particularly in swing states. For example, in 2004, Texas, now this is based on births, Texas ceased to be a white majority state. Texas became a minority majority state in 2004. Well, in 2024, those people, those babies born in 2004 will be 20 years old and they'll be eligible to vote in the 2024 election for the first time. And you think they're going to vote for white supremacist Republicans? This is why the Republicans are stepping up their game. They've used this canard of election fraud forever to try to suppress the vote of black folks, urban folks, poor folks, young folks, elderly people. Now they're going a whole nother step farther and passing laws that, in addition to the normal, barriers to voting, passing laws that basically say that election officials can simply throw out the results if they don't like them. This is not a good thing. I mean, this is what Joe Stalin told his personal secretary back, in the 1920s. He said, quote, "I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how. But what is extremely important is this: who will count the votes and how." Yeah, I mean, this is what Republicans are doing right now. And this is the essence, by the way, of John Eastman's memo, the one that came out of the White House just before January 6th, where he basically said, he laid out what I laid out in March of last year. I predicted Trump was going to do this 9 months before he did. I said he's going to try to replay the 1876 election, where the election, or the 1824 or the 1800 election, all three of those elections got thrown to the House of Representatives because there wasn't a clear majority of electoral votes. And there wasn't a clear majority of electoral votes in the election of 1876. I mean, there was a clear majority, but it wasn't enough to push it over the 50% number in 1876 because 4 states submitted incomplete ballots or conflicting ballots. Actually, in each case, it was conflicting ballots. Oregon and 3 southern states, submitted ballots both for Tilden and for Hayes. And that's, I wrote about this, I talked about this on the air, and sure enough, it's exactly what Trump tried to do. And now they're going to try and do it again in 2024, whether it's for Trump or some other Republican. They're setting this up in the states all across the United States. And they're being supported now by right-wing billionaires and big corporations. One of the better documentarians of this is Judd Legum over at popular.info, where he's been, bullet pointing his stories about crazy Republican positions, which corporations are supporting these Republicans. And it's a whole pile of them. It's just like Fritz Tyson, who wrote the book, I Paid Hitler. You don't need democracy to make money. In fact, the country that has produced the most billionaires in the last 20 years is China. China is not a democracy. So these guys are like, we don't care about democracy. We just want to stay billionaires. And now you've got in Montana, the Republicans in the Montana legislature passed Senate Bill 319, which says a political committee may not direct, coordinate, manage, or conduct any voter identification efforts, voter registration drives, signature collection efforts, ballot collection efforts, or voter turnout efforts for federal, state, or local or school elections inside, basically, on a college campus. The classrooms, obviously, you can't do electioneering in the classrooms, so they say you can't do it inside a residence hall, a dining facility, or athletic facility. Really, it's against the law now to campaign on a college campus in Montana? And Georgia, Arkansas, Kansas, Arizona, Texas, and Florida are all considering similar legislation right now. In Georgia, they're actually removing election officials. The New York Times reported across Georgia, many members of at least 10 county election boards have been removed, had their positions eliminated, or are likely to be kicked off through local ordinances or new laws passed by the state legislature. At least 5 are people of color. Most are Democrats. Surprise, surprise. 19 Republican-controlled states have passed 30 pieces of legislation to make it harder for Social Security-age people to vote, college-age people to vote, and BIPOC folks to vote. And in many of those states, politicians who are now in charge of elections can just refuse to certify the election if they don't like it. And as I said, what are they trying to do? They're trying to replace democracy in this republic with an authoritarian oligarchy, with a strongman oligarchy along the lines of Hungary or Russia. And frankly, given the demographic changes, I mentioned Texas a minute ago, this really is probably going to be their last chance. Young people are coming into their own in huge numbers, and they are pissed that nothing's being done about the climate, among other things. So what are these guys doing now? Now they're funding right-wing groups that are running around with black flags saying, we're willing to kill our neighbors. We think that a civil war is happening already. We got the guns and we're ready to shoot. This is the no surrender, no quarter black flag. I talked about this yesterday. Michelle Davis, writing for the Living Blue in Texas blog, writes, the title of her blog is, are your Republican neighbors planning on killing you? The answer, she writes, is yes. They say civil war and they say it's already started. And she brings the footage to back up her assertion. I mean, there's a book about this. It came out in 2005. It's titled Black Flag Over Dixie, Racial Atrocities and Reprisals in the Civil War. The Confederate soldiers who flew the black flag were the ones who were engaged in massacres of African Americans. This is like right straight out of the Turner Diaries. And then Steve Bannon this week, Donald Trump this week is echoing Hitler turning the widow of one of the men who died in his beer hall putsch into a national martyr. Donald Trump is doing the same thing now with Ashley Babbitt, who died at the Capitol, was killed by a police officer, and just like the person that Hitler did. And now and then yesterday they were saluting the flag, pledging allegiance to the flag from January 6th, which is what Hitler did with the flag that they carried when they tried to take over the capital, the Bavarian state capital in Munich in 1922 or 23. They turned that into an iconic totem, the blood-stained flag, they called it. And now Steve Bannon, you'll recall, Hitler said that once he was well established, there would be, the Third Reich would produce 1,000 years of peace. Steve Bannon comes out and says, we're putting together a coalition that's going to govern for 100 years. Are we there yet?